Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. Join the podcast mogul Phil Better as he interviews successful entrepreneurs that make their living in the digital world. Now, let's join your host, Phil Better, and his special guest today on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast.
Welcome to another enlightening episode of Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. I am, of course, Phil Better, the podcast mogul. And today we have a truly exceptional guest whose multifaceted career spans the realms of art, education, and creative mentoring. This guest has dedicated their life to inspiring others through their art, through their contributions, and their contributions are nothing short of extraordinary. Our guest is an accomplished artist and an art mentor with a profound passion for nurturing creativity in others. They are distinguished author of several textbooks used in college courses on art history and appreciation, demonstrating their expertise and dedication to education. Their academic credentials are impressive, including a BFA in painting and theater, an MA in ceramics, and a certificate in film productions. This unique blend of skills highlights their versatility and depth in the arts. Beyond the classroom, our guest has made significant strides as an actor and creative specialist. Their commitment to the arts is not just professional, but a deeply personal, as they believe in the transformative and healing power of creative expression. They have touched countless lives through their teaching, mentoring, coaching, and sharing their vast knowledge for the passion of the arts. Listeners, prepare to be inspired and moved by the remarkable journey and profound insights of today's guest. It is with great pleasure and anticipation that I welcome the wonderful Karen DeLoach to the podcast. Karen, welcome to the show.
Wow, what a paragon. That sounds awesome. Thank you.
You are very welcome. As my guests know, I like being a hype man for my guests as the hype man for rap artists in the early 90s. And so that's why I put as much as I can into the intro. Karen, I am so happy to have you here. We talked a bit beforehand. We had a great chat, but I'm so excited to hear more about your journey as an entrepreneur, going from the arts to helping people. So without further ado, why did you become an entrepreneur after having such a career as an artist?
Well, you know, the phrase starving artist.
I've heard of it. It's been slightly said here or there.
It's not, I mean, it's a cliche for a reason. I mean, not that I've starved, but making a living in the arts is like for the bare 1% of 1%. And the rest of us, passionate about creativity and what we're doing, fall flat or just make all these efforts in different ways. And so I do have a passion for teaching as well, as you described. So there's an avenue for teaching. I've been teaching in college, but I taught in homeschooling world out of my studio all through the years because I love to see that creativity stirred up in others as well. And, you know, the byproduct of finding out people get healing from doing the arts was just amazing. And that started me on more of an entrepreneurial journey of researching, well, what is going on in our brains when we're engaging in the creative, and why don't more of us do it? Because it became very evident that we are all creatives, because we have half our brain devoted to creativity. And so even if we don't identify as an artiste or a musician or someone in the arts, we still have that capacity for creativity in our own lives, for problem solving, for fulfillment, for releasing serotonin, the happiness chemical, for reducing stress and cortisol levels. All of these incredible benefits, whether you're good at it or not, are ours to endeavor to accomplish. Only 20 minutes a day. So I've been doing all this research, and of course, you know, the last few years brought a lot of us online.
Yep. A small event in 2020 brought us all online. We don't talk about it. It's a small event.
It starts with a C too, right? We don't say the secret. But anyway, the reality is that for me at 70, this was a huge, steep learning curve, just like going to film school in my 50s. I have a storytelling background. I love storytelling. My theatrical background is all about telling stories. My father was an Irish storyteller. He was on vaudeville as a youth, so it goes way back in my blood to tell stories, and that's part of the joy for me, is endeavoring to engage people's stories. When I wrote the textbook for my school, it's because I had a rural audience, a rural student body, that most of them hadn't been to museums ever in their life. They'd never been to an art gallery, art museum. They weren't really interested. They had no idea what their opinion was about art. They weren't aware of the incredibly rich history of Western art. So these are endeavors that I made to inspire them. When I had them for those weeks, those months in my class, I could 1,800 images. Even if they don't read the book, they're going to get a lot of pictures. And I would give them assignments to find something that moves you, that the arts move us. They create an emotional attachment, just like stories do. They touch us not just in our minds, but in our emotions, which is very human. And AI can't match our emotional world. It's very good at left brain skills, but not very good at right brain skills. So we have that advantage as humans. So, taking my art online and taking my message of art as self-therapy, wellness through creativity has been so much fun. So yes, I enjoy it. I enjoy having a wider audience that being online has enabled. And quite frankly, I've gotten angry about the fact that all these degrees, all these years in school, and nobody ever taught us anything about marketing and sales and how to make an actual living at your art. And although some people tell me they went to school back then, it has nothing to do with the way to do it now. So things have changed, as you know. It's ever expanding technological world out there. So, for me and my generation, we've had to learn and try to catch up, but I love it, to be honest with you. I love it. I love being able to share this message with everybody, that they can find a way to engage in their own creative brilliance.
I love that. I love that. And I love that your audience, you've grown your audience, because as a marketer, you have this ability, because you came from a storytelling background. And everybody knows today marketing is all about storytelling and weaving a tale to help the members who may become your clients learn something about themselves, but also about yourself, and get engaged with your content. And I'm very excited, because we there was a story you told me when we first chatted about you coming on the podcast that blew me away. And I'm hoping that you'd be up to sharing that story with my audience, because it is probably the best case study, or proof in the pudding, if you will. Never understood that saying, but that shows how powerful art is as self-therapy. Could you share that story with us?
Oh yeah, I actually have several, but I think the one you're talking about is the young man that came to my studio when he was really depressed and struggling with his academics. He had ADHD and dyslexia and was not thriving at all. And he was getting a lot of attention from his parents, working really hard with them, but it wasn't working. And he felt like a failure. And quite frankly, wasn't going to make it through school without some changes. So his family brought him to my studio, and it was evident very quickly that this young man had a gift for creativity. He loved sculpture. He had, was into Star Wars and all the creatures and all the fun things there, and Doctor Who, and he made all these things, that was really meaningful to him. These were really well done sculpture. He could draw, he could paint, and I started entering my students' work in a local youth art competition that was the largest one in our state. And they started winning ribbons. Well, you can imagine this kind of success changed his life. He gained confidence to be able to address his mental problems. I mean, the challenges he had with his disabilities, to actually graduate from high school. So at 18, he had success. Matter of fact, I entered a boutique he did in my studio that won not just first place, but best in the entire show. He won money. And he was riding high, feeling like a huge success, when tragedy struck. He got a brain infection that caused a stroke. So now suddenly at 18, he's paralyzed on the right side of his body. Didn't know if he was going to live. He had to have his skull removed. He's got a plastic skull, but he did live. But in 4 months of therapy, he got released from the hospital. He couldn't talk. He was dragging the right side of his body with a walker, and they were trying to keep his right hand from curling up into a ball. So his mom brought him back to my studio.
It worked once. Why not try it a second time in my book?
And I'm not an art therapist, but I thought, well, why not? Your left hand works. Let's try that. And sure enough, in a short amount of time, he was drawing as well with his left hand. He could paint. He was doing all kinds of writing with his left hand. Well, then I get a call from his neurosurgeon. And this is quite frankly what set me on my journey of discovery of what the scientists have discovered about the arts, because he said, I've never called anybody's art teacher before.
Was a bit at first. It's always weird. You're like, I have to call an art teacher. What? I'm a doctor. What am I doing calling an art teacher?
Exactly right. And he said, quite frankly, he said, David is stronger with his weak hand than I am, and I'm a surgeon. What are you doing? He said, not only that, he's getting healing on the right side of his brain. It's healing him. I'm like, whoa, wow, that's awesome news. I don't know. I'm just teaching him to draw and paint. And he said, well, don't stop. Keep it up. It's working. And sure enough, this young man got his speech back. He could start talking. He could start communicating again. He could start walking. And you look at him now, he doesn't use a walker. He walks straight. He talks. He's got his sense of humor. He's not in depression. He's got a great dry sense of humor, and he's so much fun. And I'm so grateful that his family and his neurosurgeon are convinced the arts help bring healing to him.
Listen, I'm convinced. I'm convinced. Like, not only did you help him when he was in school struggling, which we know art can help bring people outside of themselves, because it's a form, like you said, it's a form of expression. We're getting to express ourselves. My art is my podcast. I get to express myself, my joy of learning. And I get to learn so much from my guests and my audience when they interact. But the second part, that part like blew me away. That's why I wanted you so much on the podcast, to prove how much art can actually help change, the brain, by creating those new connections, by healing the damage that can be done by, outside forces. When we allow the brain to have time to play, in essence, it's playing. Yes, it's work at some points, but it's a lot more play, I find, because you get to be creative. When you saw David's success, because it's miracle success, but it's art, so it's not too miracle. Art is miracle in my book, because it's creating something from nothing. When you saw how well he was doing, and you get the call from the neurosurgeon, what was it that was like? Was there something where like, okay, I'm going to go down this route 100%, like this is my new calling? Or did it take a few other Davids, if you will, to set you down on that path?
Well, that's a good question. It's something that, evolves. I've been teaching a long time. I've been doing art a long time. I'm not a spring chicken, and this is my world. And, my children are musicians, my writers and artists, and my husband. So we are very involved in the arts and entertainment world. And so we're really passionate about the ability of the arts to change people's lives in so many ways, besides what our product is that we're sharing, that is a product of our own creativity. But for me, I feel like my superpower truly is stirring up the creative in others. It's part of my joy that I get to do. And it's interesting, you're talking about fun. Even Albert Einstein, considered one of the greatest creative geniuses of the 20th century, said that creativity is intelligence having fun. And we don't have enough fun in our lives. And that's the truth. Not healthy fun. This is healthy fun. This is fun that can change your brain chemistry. And it does. It changes chemistry. From what I've read, what David had happening was he had already been building these left brain, right brain neural connections through the arts. And when he had a damaged part of his brain, the plasticity of the brain enabled that to find another place in the brain to help him walk, to help him talk. So even though there was damage to those centers, the plasticity was working for him, and so I had confidence. I had another student who was an adult, very good at sculpture. And she came to me and said, I have been diagnosed with late stage breast cancer and given 6 months to live. And I said, okay, look, in 9 months from now, I've got a huge room installation, porcelain taste and see sweet shop that I'm creating. Hundreds and hundreds of pieces. Come help me. Come into the studio and work with me. She's like, Karen, I don't even know if I'm going to be here in 6 months. I mean, past 6 months. I said, well, you'll have a legacy to leave to your family.
Yeah.
So when she wasn't doing all the medical stuff, she was in the studio with me. We had a blast. Okay, so what glaze will make dark chocolate? What glaze will make light chocolate? And we were making truffles and chocolates and candies and cakes and cupcakes and cookies and just having a blast. And sure enough, in 9 months, there she was with me in the show. We had a 17-day show with people coming in and seeing it, thinking they were going to buy chocolates. I'm like, yeah, you can buy them. They're for sale, but you better not eat them. They're going to break your teeth. and she went into remission. And now 10 years later, 8 years later, she's completely cancer-free. And she's convinced, just as David's family, that the arts distracted her, gave her something to hope for, to enjoy, and not be thinking about the infirmity, all this disease she was fighting. And it gave her more courage and more joy and more fun to fight that disease. And she did successfully fight it. And I just saw her last month, and she's got her sense of humor too. She's not depressed. So there's something about the arts and getting involved in your own personal creativity that increases your joy. It just flat out does. The scientists even say it. It's fulfilling to find something you enjoy doing that brings focus to your life. Something as simple as taking a stroll. Now, I'm not talking about a Fitbit walk where you're counting your steps and doing aerobics. Those are great. Those have a place. I'm talking about where you're in the moment. You're looking around. You're noticing the sky. You're noticing the clouds. You're noticing the birds singing. You're being aware, essentially, of what's around you. And maybe you bring your sketchbook. Maybe you bring your notebook, take notes or sketch or do neural doodles. And in that time, you're finding a release of joy, a release of, you get back and you did some exercise. That's good for your body, but mostly you did good for your soul, for your mind, your will and emotions. It's that simple to do. 20 minutes a day. That's all you need to do.
I love that. I love that simple piece of advice to the audience to help them get into that creative mode. Just 20 minutes walking. Not only is it healthy for you, you're walking and getting those steps in, but you're getting healed from nature, getting healed from the earth, which is so important, as the earth is where we are and it's connected to us because we return to it once we are, decide to move off, shuffle off this mortal cable that we are a part of, and join the greater cosmos. But I love how art has changed not only two people. Like if those two stories don't showcase the power of art, I don't know what can. Yes, science is there, but it's just like you need the left and right brain. It's one side of the brain doing all the work. That's the science. And the other side needs to be there too to help, because then you have a complete healing. And I love that the neurosurgeon was like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working. Keep doing it.
Invest yourself. It's such a great title, invest in yourself, because I don't think, especially for parents, or we have a life where we poured ourselves into our families, into our work, that we've really spent enough time investing in ourselves. We almost feel guilty sometimes if we do that. And if we saw how much better we feel and we can make our families feel, or those around us feel, if we invest even 20 minutes a day into something fun, something enjoyable, something we can focus on. I know a lot of people don't know what, can't identify with the arts at all. And I say, what did you love when you were 5 or 6? What did you love to do? Did you like to spin around and dance in the playground, or like me, direct plays,
I can see you on the playground during recess or lunch going, okay, Katie over here. Okay, your line is this. Okay, Johnny over here.
Exactly.
Okay, we're doing this. I can so see you. I can feel that energy inside you.
Oh yeah, the great big playground is the spaceship just landed and there's an alien coming and you got to fight him off. And oh yeah, that was so much fun. and then one of my sons, everything was a drum. I mean, everything around him was a drum. And of course, he ended up a musician and a drummer. It just very easy for me to see that when he was young. So, you can ask yourself, what did I love to do? Did I love to sing? Do you sing, Phil? Do you like to sing in the shower? Do you sing in the car? Are you a singer?
I do sing. I can say that I don't have the best singing voice. It's not cats being strangled or nails on a chalkboard, thankfully. However, it has a reserved place for the shower and the car when no one's around.
Well, believe it or not, scientists have studied people singing in the shower. Now, this is a cool one for those of you that, don't, that love to sing, but don't, like with me, people turn the radio on when I start singing. So I get in the car when I'm by myself and I can belt it out and nobody can stop me. All right. I try to sing like Barbara Streisand, but all right, there you have it. So they studied people, there you are, rub-a-dub-dubbing, scrubbing in the tub. You're resting your left brain, even though you're using it when you're moving, and you're singing along, having a good time. And you come out and you're feeling good, you're drying off, and you don't realize you've released all this serotonin, the happiness chemical, you're feeling good, and you've been building neural connections between your left brain and your right brain, new ones, never before seen. And all of a sudden an idea comes to you. I hadn't thought of that for the name of my next chapter, or, that's a solution to this problem at work I hadn't even thought of. Or, man, relationally, if I said this to my kid, maybe he'd hear me. So there is something that happens in our brain while we're having fun singing. So don't stop. Keep singing. It's actually working good for you.
I love that. Well, I'm going to start upping my singing in the shower, and the people in the surrounding apartments need to deal with the songs, whether they're good or bad. You touched on investing in yourself, which is the point of this show. We want to learn about investing in ourselves and how it can pay off. With your multiple disciplines, like you have more disciplines than I think most people have ideas. I'm wondering how those disciplines have helped you invest more into yourself, and what do you do to invest in yourself?
When I was young and I was interested in so many things, they tell you, you're going to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. But, when you really love a lot of things, you can't help yourself. I was into sports. I was a, soccer player in college and doing every theater production and just busy because that was who I was. And it was interesting going to film school in my 50s, by the way, taking every course. Okay, I don't want to be a scriptwriter. Okay, I don't want to be the videographer. Okay, producing, directing. Being a producer means you need to know something about every area in order to hire the best people and put all the pieces together to make a film happen. So that aspect of my character really makes me a better filmmaker. And I teach filmmaking. I have a group of Ugandan youths that are rescuees that are shooting their last scenes Friday of this week of a film that we wrote over the last year. And they are so passionate about it. We've been able to raise the money for their equipment, and they have such stories to tell. You talk about stories. They got stories. I don't know if anybody wants to hear them, but we need to hear them. They're stories we need to hear. And so being able to teach them how to pull all these pieces together. So, being multidisciplinary, and it maybe worked against me as I was trying to learn all these things. But as you know, as an entrepreneur, you can't help it. Unless you can hire everybody, you have to do it. And yes, we do invest in different programs. We do invest in mentors. And I'm totally convinced of that. When I was in college, I could draw really well. I'd love to draw people, been drawing people, but I didn't know how to paint. So I took all these painting classes. 4 different professors convinced me using 4-letter words that I wasn't a painter. They hated my paintings. And I heard you're not good enough. You're never going to be good enough. Forget about it. Go into sculpture. Go into ceramics. So that's what I went into for my graduate work. And every time I'd try to paint, I'd get halfway to that stuck point and I couldn't finish. And I had these canvas after canvas for year after year. I couldn't finish a painting. I was convinced. They convinced me I couldn't paint. Well, a mentor came along in my life who had been to the Chicago Art Institute and old school, taught me the fundamentals that I needed to build my skills to be a better painter, because I like naturalism. I like impressionism. So I needed to be able to make my people look like people, right?
Mm.
First, before I abstracted them, I wanted them to look like people. And, and I got the chance to build my skills and find out, you know what? I'm not proving you right anymore. And I'm not listening to that left brain bully that came into agreement that you can't paint and you're just proving them right. Now I could paint, and I started getting paid to paint. And my mom, when I was little, painting outside of the lines and on the walls with my crayons, big trouble, didn't know that someday I'm going to be paid to paint on people's walls and do murals. So, it's funny how that we go back to that thing. What did you love when you were little? Because it's a clue of what you could be doing now. Never too old, never too late to be creative.
I love that. And that's a very good piece of advice there. It's never too old to start your creative journey. Just like you said, like you went back to school when you're in your 50s to learn how to do filmography and be a massive film person. And now you're teaching that, and you're helping people. You're helping kids in Uganda deal with the trauma that they had to face, and be able to tell the stories so that it can escape their soul and they can start that healing process in their own unique ways. And I think that is something that is monumental to your legacy that you're leaving. Not only the legacy of David, that is now a full functioning human, even after facing so much adversity. And then you have that lady who beat breast cancer, is now in remission, and is doing so much better. And then the kids in Uganda. These are legacy leaving things that will impact generations, and that is just insane. And that is something that will be great on your epitaph, if you will, when you decide to go to the next level. But I'm wondering, with being a mentor, because you have been mentored, now you're mentoring so many, what piece of advice you consistently give to your students and mentorees, and how can our listeners apply this to their own creativity to achieve their goals?
That's a great question, Phil. And there is some things that I learned because their advice. I'm sure my college painting teachers weren't trying to ruin the next 10 years of my life. They thought they were doing the world a favor. We won't set this bad painter out in the world, but they didn't give me the tools I needed. And so what I've done all these decades I've been teaching is I create a safe space. This is a no criticism zone. Because what I've learned about the left brain is it's the critical thinking, the logic, and it's memorization, and it's timely, and it's at war kind of with our creative side unless they're working together. And so as we gain these opportunities to be creative, we need to give ourselves the grace to not have to be perfect at first. That paralysis of perfectionism. Give yourself a safe space to learn and to grow and to get better at it. Have fun, laugh, enjoy the process. When I teach drawing, the first drawing lessons we do, they're not allowed to look at their paper at all while they're drawing. That's to get them into the right side of the brain, get less product oriented, less perfectionistic. We can be excellent without having to be perfect. And so as I say to you, whatever your endeavors are, give yourself the grace to make mistakes and enjoy the process. Don't look at the product so much as the process. If you love it, enjoy it.
I have to touch on something that you dropped. It hit me. You can be exceptional without being perfect, which is, I think, a message that needs to be on a billboard in Times Square. Because of how powerful it is, because we're so focused on perfection. We're so focused on being the best version of ourselves so that we can show the world how great we are. And we think we need to be perfect. And in reality, there is no such thing as perfection. If we look out, there's nothing in nature that's perfect, right? There's nothing in our world that's perfect, but everything is so exceptional. And saying that you can be exceptional without perfection is, I think, the key point to this whole episode. We can end it right here, and that can be the whole episode. I can just clip that,
awesome.
and that episode will be 100%.
You asked a good question.
I do my best. That's my creativity. That's where my creativity comes from. we are coming near to the end of the show, which I despise because I'm having so much fun chatting with you and hearing about all the greats that you've done. So before I jump to my last question, though, because that question is super important, I'm wondering, with every creative professional faces challenge, and you certainly had your share, can you describe a major challenge you faced in your artistic or teaching career that you overcame it, and what strategies you used?
Oh, that's a tough one. Learning to be a better teacher, a better painter made me a better teacher. And part of it was understanding that I had received these negative words and they really affected me. That sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a big fat lie. That's
Mhm.
not true. Words hurt us. I can't tell you how many people say, "Oh, I can't draw." I tried to draw and it didn't work out. Somebody told them that was important to them. Somebody told me as a kindergartner, they colored outside the lines. They were having a blast. And the teacher tore their paper up in front of everybody and said, "You can't color." So in third grade, someone says, "You want to color with me?" She goes, "I can't color." Can you imagine being convinced at third grade you can't color? So it just robs people, these words, that if we can, insulate ourselves or just recognize, wow, I have words inside of my mind, inside of my heart that hurt me, that wounded me, that kept me from singing, that kept me from playing the piano, that kept me from dancing. And it's not too late. One of my favorite Christmas presents, my husband bought us ballroom dancing classes. Well, for the next couple of years, we had so much fun. We got our children involved. We got our church people involved. We got our friends involved. We just shut the place down. We had so much fun. It's not too late to enjoy what you have in your heart that you love to do.
Oh, I love this episode so much, and I'm disappointed that it's ending. Karen, I'm definitely going to have you back on because you have a wealth of wisdom and your creativity is endless. I can see it. But we are coming to the end. So I'm going to get into your creative mind once more. I have your 10-year-old self here, Karen. She is a delight. She's been drawing on my walls, though. So, but I'm not mad. I'm not mad because it's beautiful artwork of a 10-year-old. But what's one piece of advice you would love to be able to hand back to your 10-year-old self?
That's so good. How many of us would love to be able to do that and for real? And it's some of what we've already been talking about. What did you love? What have you loved, in your life? You're still young enough at 10 to understand that coloring really was important to you, or dancing in the playground, or singing at the top of your lungs, or, directing plays in the playground. And that this is something you can grab a hold of and maybe find mentors for, because even at the age of 10, there's ways to cultivate your own creative giftings that are there. And I know they're there. I guarantee they're there. So let them be stirred up and find out what you love to do, because it can stand you in good stead your whole life.
Oh, I think that's some amazing advice. Again, this whole episode is nothing but amazing creativity and love. Karen, I'm going to jump off the stage here for a moment. I'm going to give you the last little bit. Tell my audience how they can connect with you if they're looking for some art therapy or looking for some more amazing pieces of advice and guidance. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah. So if you want more information about getting your own creativity stirred up, go to www.getcreativewithkaren.com and you can sign up for this 3-part pop-up podcast that I've created to give you more examples of ways you can be creative, how you can use your right brain brilliance to its most effect, overcome brain fog, and maybe all kinds of things that are afflicting you through finding and stirring up your own personal creative. So please get creative with Karen.
I love it, Karen. I can't thank you enough, Karen, for coming on the show and sharing the amazing stories and pieces of advice to my audience. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much. You are wonderful. You're great at it and very creative.
Thank you for that. To my audience, as you know, the show notes will have everywhere you can connect to Karen, but I highly suggest you check out Get Creative with Karen to hear that pop-up podcast. It's an amazing podcast that will take you to new levels of creativity. And as Karen says, you just have to be exceptional. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And with that, I tell you all, remember to always invest in yourself.